Witch has always been a word used for women that society wants to control. This June, you can reclaim your power and the power in the word witch at Witch School, Australia's largest gathering of its kind. For 2 days in Melbourne, you'll join a community exploring the spiritual and feminist legacy of witchcraft. No gatekeeping, no judgment, just genuine connection with like-minded witches and over 30 classes led by experienced practitioners. Whether you're just curious or deeply called to the craft, there's a place for you at Witch School. Join us on June 7th and 8th at Hawthorn Arts Centre. Head over to witchschool.au and use code HANA, H-A-N-A, for 15% off your ticket. Your coven is waiting. Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favourite witches. Hi there, hello, welcome, and it's so nice to have you here with me today. We're going to be chatting about cleansing, and look, if you are an experienced witch, you might think you got this down pat, which is great. I love that for you. But also have a listen, because maybe there's some tips in here that you hadn't considered before around making your cleansing practice easier, or making it more efficient, or using an alternative method that you hadn't thought of before. And if you're newer to the craft, welcome, absolutely welcome. I hope this gives you the information that you need. So the inspiration for this episode actually comes from one of our Hana Help Me question submissions. And this question comes in from Kate. Kate says, Hana, help me. I have a question about cleansing jewellery. I've been watching your tarot card videos on YouTube, and you actually mentioned not cleansing your tarot deck very often if you are just practicing by yourself, since we want to form a connection with our deck and keep our energy intact. I had a question as I was watching another video of yours about protection. How often should we be cleansing our amulets, our pendants, jewellery and rings, especially the ones that we wear daily? Is it a general practice to do a cleanse of all our witchy stuff every full moon? I haven't watched all of the tarot FAQ videos yet, so I apologise if the answer is in there. Thank you, Kate. Kate, this is a wonderful question, and I'm using this as the basis of this episode because it's a topic I haven't talked deeply about on the podcast, and it's one that is so damn useful. So we're going to talk about cleansing in general, and I promise I absolutely will talk on the specifics of cleansing jewelry and cleansing tarot decks and cleansing protective amulets and things like that as well. Alright, so in a nutshell, we're going to be talking about how to cleanse and clear your space, but this also includes clearing and cleansing yourself and your tools as well. So what on earth do I mean by this? Cleansing and clearing is the act of removing unwanted, or you could use the word negative attachments, some people use that, energy, psychic debris, which can build up over time, depending on the type of work that you do or how empathic or psychically open you might be. So when Kate was asking about cleansing schedules, essentially, this needs to be taken into account. So those who work in really negative environments, so I'm talking like a toxic workplace culture or high emotional places like hospitals, funeral homes, wedding venues, will definitely benefit from a cleansing and clearing regimen, as well as those who work in care-related industries like the health and wellness sector, who might be subject to taking on the emotions and worries of their clients. So this would be people who are nurses, therapists, psychic mediums. If you work with crystals, tarot, oracle cards, divinatory tools such as divining rods, pendulums, spirit boards, then I would say you probably want to have a cleansing ritual that you can turn to. And this would be to cleanse your space, yourself, your entire body, and your tools that you've been using as well. As witches, it is imperative that we know how to cleanse ourselves and our space, because if you're doing any form of spell work or ritual, you want to be cleansed before you do that. You want the space to be clear of anything that could influence that spell work. Okay, so what is it though, Hannah? Tell me, what is it? What does it matter? Well, just as you will sweep the dirt out after walking mud into your home, you too need to sweep away anything that's attached itself to you. Now, I don't want you to go thinking that you've got like a ghost attached to you or attached to your cards or anything like that. That is not what we're talking about. This is literally just like an energetic buildup that can attach itself to us. And it could just be someone else's energy that we've talked to, or we've hugged them, we've been in their little energy aura bubble and haven't really disconnected yet. But why do we sweep away any of these energies? Why do we need to do that? Well, this absolutely depends on your own individual belief system. It is highly personal, but I'm going to tell you what I believe and why I recommend cleansing it all. So obviously we understand germ theory and why personal hygiene and hand washing is so crucial. Although I say that, but the alt-right wellness sector has somehow come out with the fact that germ theory isn't real and we shouldn't be washing our hands. Do not listen to them. That is disgusting. Wash your hands. So with personal hygiene, hand washing, all of that, did you know that many religions required these practices well before germ theory was established? Did they know something that we didn't? Maybe they did originally, and then the knowledge was known and then lost, and only the rituals remain. But this does make me wonder when it comes to the other ritualized practices as to whether science hasn't caught up with it yet, right? Because I do believe that around a lot of the things that I do, that we just haven't caught up to it yet. So you might have heard me say before that everything is energy. And I also believe that there's a lot that happens in that energetic, ethereal space that most people are unaware of. I mean, we can't even see all of the colors, right? We can't hear all of the sounds. We can't feel all of the frequencies. So, of course, there are things happening that we're not going to be aware of. There isn't necessarily good and bad energy. I mean, some people would say it was more a vibrational scale. We could call it more, sometimes it's helpful or harmful. The language is tricky because we get into that binary thinking, and I don't want you to think about that. So when we talk about people, for example, there are people whose energy may not vibe with our own. They are maybe on I don't want to say like a low vibe person, but I'm going to say a toxic person. Like a toxic person to be around, they leave you feeling emotionally and physically drained, right? We might also have places that the vibe doesn't match us, right? Due to acts that have occurred there. So think about prisons or murder scenes that hold on to the residual energy from that act. And next there are things or items that might hold on to this residual energy from being used in a way that we might not have used them. So along with this like mismatched energy that is from things we don't maybe agree with or want in our life, I'm trying really hard not to say low vibe. It's really tricky. There's also just the unwanted energy of another person, right? You think about when you're like just at, I don't know, baseline energy and you bump into someone who is like super hyped up and you're like, I just can't right now. That's not like a low vibe person, but it's also not matching right now. You're like, no, this is actually making me feel worse, right? So sometimes there's just too much of something as well. So for example, if I'm using my tarot cards to read for other people, if it's like a lot of people in a row, like if I'm at a tarot party, sometimes I throw tarot and gin parties. They are very fun. And I'm doing person after person after person. Or if I am doing live readings on a call, I will definitely be cleansing my tarot cards straight after that, and sometimes even in between as well, just to make sure that it feels clear and clean. If I'm in my own space, if I'm doing them on the live call, I don't have to do it as much. It's like there's a bit of a barrier that not protects me, but just I'm in my own space, right? It's not affecting me as much as if I'm at an event where there are physical people right there with me. Then I will probably place my tarot cards on a selenite disc, or I will knock on them in between readings or in between every couple. I feel into it. And there are some people who are quite energy sensitive, psychics, mediums, energy healers, empaths, and those who don't realize that they are yet. And they're usually pretty good at figuring out when there's stuck, unwanted energy in or around them. And we can all learn to tune in to our sensitivities with practice. So that kind of tells you like what we're dealing with in terms of other people. But one thing I didn't mention is ourselves. We can do this to ourselves. So we can absolutely get caught up in our own emotional stuff or stress or all sorts of things that can almost, I feel sometimes it's like a second skin. I just have to like get it off me to get back to a baseline for where I want to be. So this is, I guess, the why we do that, okay? So basically, in a nutshell, cleansing and clearing is getting us back to a neutral space, a baseline state, or getting our tools back to a neutral state or a baseline state. If you are using your tarot cards and you're asking on a specific topic or question, and it's still answering almost like from the previous question or a previous theme that you've been reading on, and it's like, no, I'm talking about something else now. That to me would be a big indicator that your deck needs to be cleansed. If it's feeling a little bit funky or like it's just not reading right, or you're like, it's not quite clicking or making sense, that's another sign that maybe we need to cleanse our deck. And especially in that instance, I'd also be connecting back in with it. Pop it under your pillow for a night, throw it in your handbag and walk around with it for a day, that kind of thing. But let's talk about how we cleanse and clear stuff, okay? So I'm going to give you some examples to give you a rough idea of a couple of different styles. It's going to be trial and error, basically, to tell you what feels best for you personally. So we can cleanse with water. Now, at its base form, if I'm doing spell work, like a proper, like not just a little something, if I'm doing a big working, I am in the shower scrubbing myself, like exfoliating, getting in everywhere, cleaning everything. That is my spiritual preparations for doing deep spell work. That's a form of water cleansing. There are a lot of people that will just stand under the shower, imagine it almost like light clearing over them, and that is a form of water cleansing. Pop yourself in a bath. Throw in some salt. That can be really good at clearing energy. And there you go. Cleansed, right? Doesn't always have to be fancy. But cleansing and clearing yourself through the act of immersion in water is a practice that dates back spiritually and religiously for thousands of years. So the practice of spiritual cleansing with water has been used by many religions and cultures across the world, and most commonly includes bodies of moving water, such as a stream or an ocean, or blessed water that is sprinkled upon the person, and also cleansing physically through bathing and hand washing. Baptism is a form of spiritual cleansing, and it occurs in both Judaism and Christian religions. So don't discount bodies of water. Sometimes I'm just like, I just need to get into the ocean, right? Like you might have that kind of a feeling. Oceans, lakes, waterfalls, showers, baths. But we can also utilize water in smaller aspects. Florida water is one option that you can use. So Florida water is a popular product from the United States of America, from the early 1800s. It has an alcohol base with a blend of essential oils such as lemon, orange, and lavender. So there are some people that essentially replace holy water with Florida water. So you could wipe down your altar, your workspace, or even add it to your floor wash to cleanse your space and the energy that might be there. So there's space for new and fresh energy to come in. Florida water is often used in spell work to remove heavier feelings and to allow for clear readings in divinatory work as well. Now, contrary to what it sounds like, Florida water is not water from Florida. It was actually made in New York originally, and it does not have water from Florida. And it was actually made as a cologne, but it has a lot of history now within the voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, and also witchcraft practices now. And personally, I love the smell. It's amazing. Holy water feels a little controversial to talk about, but it is very well known as a water for cleansing. It's very commonly used in cases of paranormal events to clear the space and also protect the space. Holy water is water that has been blessed by a religious figure, usually Catholic, but not necessarily. So depending on what you wish to cleanse and clear, you can sprinkle holy water over an object that carries maybe an entity or something that you're not vibing with. You can keep a bottle on your altar. It's great for blessing a new house before moving in, or a room before bringing home a newborn baby. And you can make it yourself. It does not have to be Catholic holy water, although it can be. But you can bless your own water. What do you think moon water is? When we're all out there making moon water on the full moon. That is holy water. For us. By us. I literally go out there and ask the moon to bless my water. So it is blessed. Blessed water. Holy water. Now, would I use water to cleanse my tarot decks? Absolutely not. I would not. Perhaps like spritz it over the packaging or the pouch or whatever the deck is in, maybe, but generally not. Oh my gosh, I once did this reel and I thought it was quite funny, where I was tongue-in-cheek saying, this is how I cleanse my deck, and I made it look like I was washing it in the sink, and then I said, oh, you can try like this, and I threw it in the washing machine. Obviously I did not actually wash it in there, but it was quite funny, and I really hope people understand my sense of humour. I thought it was hilarious. So don't use water to cleanse your decks. Also, cleansing crystals, not all of them are water safe, so it's not something that I use ever for cleansing my crystals. When it comes to jewelry as well, no, I don't use water on my jewelry. So this is really one for like my body, that I will use on my body, or if I'm wiping down a surface or adding it to floor wash, something like that. That's when I will use water for cleansing. But there is another form, and I'm sure this is the one most people will turn to first, which is smoke cleansing. Now, you might hear it being termed smudging. I do not use that term, or a smudge bundle. We're not using those terms here. I will call them herb bundles and smoke cleansing, because that's what it is. So it's a very common form. It's practiced by many Indigenous groups across the world. In North America, there are some Indigenous groups that will call this smudging, but it is its own ritual. I am not qualified to talk on that whatsoever. The Catholic Church is another follower of smoke cleansing, utilizing the incense of frankincense and myrrh for ritual use. And a lot of Eastern religions also commonly use incense and candles and other forms of smoke or flame as a cleansing method. So personally, I do not promote nor do I use white sage or Palo Santo. I do use herb bundles, often that I make myself when possible. So my personal favorites are to use rosemary. You can just use a single sprig, like a sprig of rosemary. It's wonderful. Other ones that I like are eucalypt, rosewood, yarrow, and my absolute favorite at the moment is juniper. Adore it. Absolutely adore it. So basically it's a bundle of your chosen herb that is dried, and then you light it and use the smoke. Wherever the smoke goes, things are cleansed. You can also use incense. A stick of incense is totally fine. A cauldron with a charcoal disc and some resins put on top, or some dried herbs as well, works beautifully. There are so many different methods that we can utilize for smoke cleansing. If you go with the cauldron method, that's my personal favorite for house cleansing, especially when I am doing a house cleansing for a client, because it does a big space fairly quickly. It's a lot of smoke, especially when I'm using, and you can use things like resins and things. They're quite quick, right? I can use one thing to cleanse and another thing to bless the house afterwards. So it's very versatile in that regard. If I'm just doing a small space, I will just use my herb bundle. If I am doing tarot cards, I might just use incense sticks. The basis of it is you allow the smoke to flow over the item or the area and visualize that it's carrying out the excess energy that you don't need or don't want. Now, don't forget to keep your doors and windows open when you do this. A lot of people say this is, where are the demons going to go when you're cleansing? They're stuck inside, running around away from the smoke. That's not what is happening. Not what's happening. No, we want windows and doors open for ventilation purposes to make sure that your lungs are safe. If a demon's getting in your house, it doesn't matter if the doors and windows are open or not. P.S. I joke lightheartedly about demons, but there is an episode on negative entities and demons that I did with M. Balanger. Highly recommend you go and listen to that if you want to know more about views on that topic. Alright, so outside of smoke, we also have crystal cleansing. Now, a favourite of mine for this is selenite. Now, I have actually recorded an episode with Nicholas Pearson, which is coming out next week, where we spoke specifically about selenite. This one, I'll leave that to that episode because we're going to be talking about crystals for protection. So selenite is what I've used for a very long time. I still use it, even after chatting with Nicholas. But I have these really great little, they look like a coaster. Not a coaster, don't put your drink on them. But it's a little selenite, what do I usually call it? A charging station, but it's like a circle. And now when we talk about jewelry, that is how I generally cleanse my jewelry. So I have this little selenite disc, right? And I'll put tarot cards on top of it, my pendulum on top of it, my amulets, my necklaces, my rings, whenever they feel they need it. Specifically with my pendulum, if a knot forms in the chain, that's a sign to me that, oh, I need to cleanse this. But otherwise, I generally don't. So just plonk it on there, leave it for a bit, and I'm good, right? So we can definitely use crystals. We can use pendulums to cleanse. We can use visualization, meditation, and sound. All of these things will clear blocked and stagnant energy. Salt is good at clearing, less so cleansing, but like clearing or absorbing. Essential oils, specific plants, sigil magic, all of these things are useful. Now, white selenite specifically, it's a soft gypsum stone. It is beautiful and light, comes in a range of shapes. You can get them in a wand, which is like a long column of the stone. It's very affordable and it's quite easy to find. I like the wands for cleansing my aura, like sweeping it down my body from head to toe. Think of it like lint rolling your aura. That's how I see it. Sweeps away the energetic build-up of your day, especially after a stressful day. You can also sit this crystal on top of your tarot deck as I do, leave it overnight, or maybe put it out in the moonlight as well. Pendulums. Now, pendulums are often overlooked in terms of cleansing. So what you would do is you take your crystal pendulum, my preference is for one that I have made of black tourmaline, and I let it hang so that it can move freely. Now, I might do this over my energy centers of my body, and sometimes I'll do it over my tarot deck, or specific items, and I'm just letting it hang, and it will basically move in ways it doesn't usually when I'm asking questions, right? So let's say I'm using it over my tarot deck. I've got the tarot deck either on the table or in my hand, holding the pendulum above it, and I just wait with the intention of we're cleansing here. And it sort of just goes a little bit wacko for a bit. Then it will give me a yes indication, and then it will stand still. And then I'm like, sweet, we're cleansed, we're cleared, we're good, right? You can do this over areas of your body. You can do this in your room, although I don't really use it for bigger areas. I think it's really good for a smaller area or a smaller item. So give that a try, but I would say take note of how it makes you feel, okay? With all the cleansing techniques we talked about today, use the items you already have at your disposal first. Go with what feels right to you. If a meditation makes you feel clear and ready to take on the day, then do that. I have a ton on my YouTube. There is a grounding one on my website that you can download for free. Like, give it a go. When it comes to sound cleansing, this is one that is really great. You can literally walk through your house and clap your hands. I imagine it like the sound waves knocking things off. You know, if someone does a big bass and the car goes like that. That's my bass sound. And if anything sort of there will get shaken away or shaken off, that's how I visualize sound cleansing happening. Personally, I have a small bell that I'll often give to my child and say, go and wake up the house, and they'll go into every room and ring it and wake up the house. Sometimes I use something I call ting tings. They're actually called ting sha, which is a Tibetan little chimes. Oh, they sound phenomenal. People use sound bowls, tuning forks for their body personally. There's so many things we have at our disposal that we can use. So coming back to Kate's original question, which is not cleansing your tarot deck very often. One of the things I teach when I teach people in my course, The Art of Psychic Divination, and we're talking about divination tools like tarot decks, oracle decks, pendulums, spirit boards, all these sorts of things, dowsing rods. My suggestion is when you're starting out, cleanse daily. Cleanse more than you think you have to, because what you're learning at that stage, when you're starting with energy work, psychic work, anything like that, you're learning how to discern the difference in energy, essentially. So you kind of want to do it a little bit more often, because what I find happens is you get into a bit of a ritual, you start to get familiar with what it feels to be on that baseline cleansed state. So that when you forget a day, you go, I forgot a day, but I still feel the same. Okay, maybe I can go to every second day now. And then so maybe you go every second day, and then you have something happens, you miss a few days, and suddenly you're like, oh, now I really notice it. I notice the difference. Okay, so now I know that, 4 days is my maximum. And this will stretch and change as you go on, right? Now I don't have a schedule. There's no schedule. I'm not following the moon with my cleansing. It's literally just when it feels like it needs it. Now, the other thing with tarot especially is you get to a point where sometimes if you're cleansing it too frequently, it's almost like you can't build up that same connection. So it's like I have contradictory advice for you. Cleanse all the time, but then don't cleanse all the time. So I think only when you're starting out, it's just a way of getting used to doing all of this sort of stuff. When you find your rhythm, then stick with that, okay? And don't think you need to do it all the time, right? We want to keep that connection there from us, especially like if I'm just at home doing readings for me or something like that with one of my decks, I'm not going to be cleansing it. It doesn't need to be cleansed. I'm not using it all the time. I'm not using it with lots of people. So it's going to depend on how you're using your tools as to how frequently they actually need to be cleansed. Now, when it comes to amulets, pendants, things like that, especially for protection, jewelry, especially if it's metal, holds a lot of energy and memory. It's one of the best things we can use if we're doing any form of psychometry, which is a psychic reading of an object that we're holding. Jewelry is great for that because it holds on to stuff. If you buy jewelry from like secondhand, cleanse that. Cleanse it 100%. It will be holding on to stuff. So with us, depending on the item, if we go through something where we think maybe our amulet had to do some work and do its job, we might want to give it a little bit of TLC, cleanse it, give it a recharge, something like that, and then put it back on. Again, I'm not doing it that frequently. It's if it feels like it needs it. If I'm getting, a knot in the chain, maybe that could be something that you look out for as to, okay, now I need to cleanse this. Or if you put it on and it just doesn't quite feel right. Can everyone tell that clairsentience is my strongest psychic sense? Everything's about feeling for me. I'm very sensitive to stuff around me, touch, how it feels. You might have a visual cue. You might just know. There might be something else that tells you, depending on your own psychic abilities and how sensitive you are energetically. If schedules work best for you, sure, go with the schedule of the moon. That's a really great reminder to have. But it's also okay if you forget, right? Because you'll know at some point, you'll go, oh, that's why. Oh, and then you do it, right? It's not the end of the world if we forget to cleanse our stuff. We don't need to do it every full moon. But if you're just starting out, it's a really good way to start figuring out the discernment in the energy and understanding your baseline. I hope that this has helped. I know there's a lot of information for a topic many people think is simple and basic, and it can be when you've done it for a while, but it can also be really overwhelming when you start out. So I'm hoping this made it a little bit easier or a little bit more accessible for you. So just figure out, do you want to work with water? Do you want to work with smoke? Do you want to work with sound? Do you want to work with crystals? What is it that you feel drawn to working with? You could try a different elemental form of cleansing every month. You could be like, okay, it's Pisces season right now. I'm going to do water cleansing as my focus and see how that feels for me. And then it's going to be Aries season. So maybe it's more like chanting to cleanse the space, using a charcoal disc with lots of smoke. Taurus season, you could use crystals and herbs, and Gemini season, you could use sound cleansing and more smoke cleansing. Like there's some, or visualization, right? There's so many different ways we can have fun with our practice. On the note of astrology seasons, I do post up a challenge for the Suburban Witches Society every season. So we've just about finished our Pisces season challenge, which was about going deep. Our Aries season challenge is about, it's called the Rise and Shine Challenge. It's going to be great. And I think it's a really good way to really get in touch with the seasons themselves, the energy of the season, and challenge yourself to bring in a new habit to your witchy practice. That's the goal of it. That's the basis for it. So come and join us for the challenge. I've also just posted out a candle magic cheat sheet PDF download. And in April, we have a tea leaf reading class as the bonus for the month. So that is going to be amazing. It's literally an hour-long class that you get just by being a member in the society. There is new resources, behind the scenes and fun content added every single month. It's so good. So I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world today. If you want links to Witch School, if you want links to the society, check out the description box. You'll always find all of the details available for you there. And any questions, send me a DM over on Instagram. You can find the Witch Talks Podcast specific Instagram account. It's just at Witch Talks Podcast. I'll see you there. Have you been searching for a safe space to connect with other witches and grow and develop and learn together? The Suburban Witches Society will bring you knowledge and friendships that are spiritually aligned, plus a whole heap of fun. You will get access to our private community Facebook group and group chat, which that chat pops off. There are monthly group calls, you get a reading with me, you can do Q&A, and we all just chat and hang out together. It's like a slumber party. You are welcome to wear your pajamas. This is not like fancy influencer witches on a Zoom call. We are very real over here. You can take a peek at behind the scenes episodes of the podcast that are uncut and you get access to them before anybody else. There's a resources section where you get PDF downloads, you get access to classes that are not available to the public. Here is what one of our members, Brandy, has to say about her experience in the Suburban Witches Society. Signing up to the society has been the best present to myself. My witchy knowledge has exploded and I've forged some of the deepest friendships in this group. So come and join Brandy and everyone else in the Suburban Witches Society, meet your new witchy best friend, and get a little bit closer access to yours truly as well. I hope to see you there.